Hi, welcome to Land and Expand podcast. So excited you guys have joined us today. We have a great guest on our podcast today. His name is Tom Engstrom. He is a senior IT manager for ZipWhip currently, but has a 20-year career in IT operations and management. And Tom and I have worked together before at Socrata. So I thought he would be a great guest to share with you from a customer perspective some of the things that make a vendor super successful in helping him as an IT operations manager to help optimize a company from a technology use perspective, and also share some of the challenges. So, welcome, Tom. So glad that you were able to take some time out of your, I'm sure, very crazy schedule to join us on our podcast and give us a very real world customer perspective. You know, one of the things we spend a lot of time in our podcast is always talking about the customer experience and customer success and how to model that and plan that. But we decided we wanted to take a different perspective over the next month or so and talk to customers who are using B2B solutions to optimize and make a valuable contribution to helping companies grow. So, super excited you're here and want to start with our very first question, which is, from your perspective, what do you think are the 3 to 5 key outcomes and values that you look for in any of your technology solutions to help not only your job to be more effective, but the company overall to be more effective?
Sure. To give a little bit of background on what my forte has kind of become or grown to be, has been coming into small organizations as they're attempting to mature and grow them beyond the startup phase, to take them into that enterprise level where they're no longer looking at the wild west of vendor and SaaS management, but coming into a cohesive unit that everything works as seamlessly as possible together. And so when I'm looking at new vendors and new solutions, that's kind of the looking glass that I have, or the perspective that I take when I'm assessing each and every possible new solution. And in the startup world, it is not uncommon to have hundreds of different kinds of tools and resources in your environment, and trying to whittle down and marry all those up is not a trivial task. So when I look at a new solution, and as a matter of fact, our today is the end of a quarter for a vendor that we've been vetting for about 6 months, and we're trying to land this deal that's mutually beneficial. But from that perspective, what did we look at? First, we did our engagement company-wide to look at how does this solution or this product benefit not just the organization structure that wants it, but also branching out, and how this can be something that's brought in on a holistic piece for the rest of the company, potentially deprecating another product. Secondly, I'm looking from a technical stack point of view of how does this integrate with tools such as single sign-on or other high-level IT products that can make the integration services better. Next would be looking down the pipe at further and deeper integrations that we can leverage for whether there's interoperability into the CRM tool or some sort of productivity suite or project management suite that allow for there to be cohesion and eliminating the stumbling blocks that our internal customers can potentially have. And when you look at the vendor relationship, and as I'm assessing these, it is a very, very holistic picture. Yes, I want all of these boxes checked as we're going through our assessment, but I also want to make sure that there's a relationship and a professionalism there as well. If this is a vendor that I'm going to be talking to on an ongoing basis, I want to feel that there's something being developed that's bigger and beyond just a quarterly or annual check-in, but instead is being pushed on into other aspects of our business relationship. And when we meet, when we talk, we're gaining um, kind of like an influential friendship or relationship.
And do you look for them for some insights and knowledge, um, specifically to your company, your industry? Um, do you look for them for it, just like a best practice approach, things that they can share, like things that you didn't know? Does that really intrigue you a bit more with a vendor that seems to come to the table and say, "Hey, I get you. I get your business. I get how you operate, and I know those frustrations. And have you ever thought about blah blah blah?" And is that part of what you look for?
It is. And, to expand on that just a little bit, I have challenged my IT team to not only dig deep on these vendors to build those relationships and leverage their knowledge with whatever platform it is that they're in, but also to taking that to the next level, and us being a SaaS provider as well, knowing that there's a mutual benefit that can come out of our two companies being cohesive with one another. And is it possible for me, with my relationships with my vendors, which in particular the one that we're closing today is um, a dialer that integrates with Salesforce. And my current company has a text messaging solution. And so what I'm trying to do is, do a little back scratching. I want to use you and your expertise and understand what you've got so that you can help build me out. But I also want to do that inverse. And again, this all comes back to that relationship, that trust, knowing who and what they are somebody that I can lean on when I need that extra support, and then vice versa. So there's always going to be that give and take, hopefully, within our vendor relationships.
Right. No, I agree. I think that's something I have experienced myself, but also heard. I think it's something that some vendors a little bit overlook. They get kind of stuck in their, you know, I'm going to demo you, and then I'm going to answer your questions, and they forget a little bit about the road mapping. So when you shared your value of the company, the impact to the company, the stack, how easy it is, how much of a benefit it will be to the departments using it, and then the integration, which I think we all are understanding. We want to integrate to all our other solutions as quickly as possible. um, but when you're looking at it from that perspective, is it important to you to understand how they're going to do this well? Meaning, not just how they're going to implement, but do they have a roadmap that they could show you as a best practice approach that says, in the first 30 to 60 days, here's, what we recommend. And then, every 30 days or every quarter, you can then add to this and add to that. And as your company changes, is that important in the sales cycle that they share that with you?
It is, and it's actually something that I always ask for in my assessments. Is I want to know not where they're at today, but I want to know where they want to be in the next quarter or the next year, because that will set me up for better success. Even if there is the potential for something being a bit of vaporware, at least I know where their head is at and what kind of avenues they're attempting to go down next. When you're looking at kind of fledgling startup companies, they don't have the feature-rich offerings. They're normally hitting a niche and running with it. And I'm okay with adopting those so long as when I talk to these sales folks, can get the feeling that, oh no, they really do have a good growth perspective, and what they're offering does have a runway that's going to get us to where we want to be. So long as I can, muddle through whatever the offering is now, then I'll be able to get to where I want to be at a specific time.
And thinking about solutions that you might buy for one of the departments, and they have to do the implementation, is another factor that they help, that they share with you and or the department. Do you ask them, what's your implementation plan? What kind of services do you offer? Listen, I can't implement this. I can just vet it from a technology perspective. But for me to know that the investment is going to be utilized appropriately, which I'm assuming is a key part of your decision making role, you want to know, are you going to leave my departments to their own devices? So this might be another, at the end of the year when you're looking at all the tools that you've bought and the amount of money you're spending, I'm assuming one of the things you look at is it being utilized by the departments in the way that they intended for why they bought it? How does that play into not just your decision process, but your decision process to renew it again at the end of the year?
Yeah, this is something that I started back at Socrata where we worked previously. There are some great tools out there that do SaaS management. And what that encompasses is hooks either into an SSO, or if you have products like Salesforce or Office 365 or G Suite, then there's deeper integrations depending on the product that you land with. And what that does is that scrapes all the data on logins and utilization. It tracks where your contract is at. It gives you insights into what your spend is, and basing that off of utilization so that you can have some understanding, because that is key and that is important when, for instance, here I roll up to the CFO and I'm constantly getting asked what our spend is like and how do we know that we're utilizing every piece of software when we have 200 licenses. Do we have 200 people that are truly engaged in that product? And so I've taken that to another level here, and I do quarterly meetings with all of the departments, and I ask them very specific questions around what are you using, what do you think that you're going to have next, and are the solutions that in place, are they ones that you want to manage? And more often than not, I find that once the product grows beyond just a couple of users being involved with it, the management side of provisioning access, maintaining control, and deprovisioning on termination, that they don't want to do that anymore. So I'm scraping all of this stuff back into my team to help manage that. And so, yes, the understanding where folks are at takes time, takes conversation, takes tools to get to that point where I, as kind of this intermediary, can leverage what other departments have and then bring it back into scope, so that when we do reporting, we have a more global picture of where the company's at and what they're utilizing.
Yeah, I think that's a super great point that maybe even a lot of customer success managers don't even think about, which is, maybe part of the decisions to replace or rip and replace or stop using might also come from people like yourself that are using these tools to say, listen, we're not getting value out of this investment. And if the department who's using it can't show value, can't tell you, listen, here's what it's doing to optimize, our revenues, or to cut costs for us, to make our team, more highly utilized, whatever it is, right? If they can't share that with you, your message back to the CFO is, I don't know why we're spending money on this.
Yeah, it is interesting. I have found several times where departments, they don't want to engage with me. They will frequently ask, well, why do you want to know what we're doing over here? And then I have to explain to them that there's a knowledge transfer that we need to do, and there's a broader understanding that we don't want to remain siloed. We don't want to hide the tools that we have and keep them hidden from other departments, because everywhere that I've been, there's always 6 different project management tools. We've got 8 different ways to connect from a chat base or a video base or what have you, some sort of telephony solution. It just goes on and on and on, but nobody really knows what the other guy's got. And so me stepping in and bringing that out into the open to say, hey, we've got this incredible project management tool over here that's 10 times better than the solution that you have over here. Let's take a look at it. Let's bring some of your team in and see if we can't begin to drive into avenues where we're consolidating and deprecating and returning that money back to the business.
Yeah, and I
And
love. Sorry, go ahead.
from the back office perspective, where I reside, I'm a negative cost center. And so what I'm always trying to do is to bring value back. This is one way that from my IT perspective, I can always return money back to the business. And it's my way to think that I actually leveraged enough money, whether it is to bring on another headcount or to save money across the board so that our bottom line looks better. All of these things add up over time, but somebody has to take the time to do it.
And would you then be open to like a CSM approaching you and saying, I know we have some success in these departments, but we really feel like this could be utilized for so many other departments. How can I help you? Would you be in a if someone approached you that way, would you be more willing to say, yeah, let me get an introduction, let me introduce you to this team, and then I'll let you take it from there to show them all the amazing things that they could do to optimize their team, because maybe they just need that insight and that expertise, and the department who's using it right now is like, listen, I'm heads down, I'm buried, I don't have time to go over to the marketing or other department and help them figure this out. But if a CSM from the vendor was willing to come to you and say, could you, help me work with these others, would that be something that you would appreciate or be open to?
It's so funny. I can relate this back to my personal life, and I'm looking to have some things done around my house, and I want to have somebody come in that will do what I ask them to do, but will also have a broader look at what's available to be done, and then offer up solutions around those. And I love and welcome that within my environment also. Because, as I mentioned, these SaaS companies end up with hundreds of tools and solutions at their disposal that they're paying millions of dollars annually to maintain. But we're not cracking the nut on these to where we're actually getting into what these tools can do. For instance, Workfront's a great example. I love Workfront. It's a great project management solution, but if you don't dive in and use it for everything, you're going to miss a very large amount of opportunity. And excuse me, just one moment. My computer went to sleep.
I still got you.
But anyways, if you're not using these products all day, every day, you're missing out on key pieces that could be very important to the workflow, or they could enhance what you're doing. And so having a CSM come in, and it's going to take some key questions to actually get to the root of what an individual does without making it be this long drawn out process of watching workflows. But asking the right questions to understand how I'm using a product or how another department's using a product, so that we can look at, are there feature sets that we haven't even begun to tap? Are we missing out on automations that are already built in, but because we've never been shown them, or we haven't taken the time to read the documentation or watch the tutorial videos, we're missing out on something that could be really big. And then again, when those things are discovered, we could end up leveraging this across the entire company instead of being siloed within a specific department.
Right. No, I think that's a great point. Um, so kind of changing perspective, thinking about the vendors that you have ripped and replaced, or at the end of your year of evaluating the investments and what's been more worthwhile, and you're making recommendations, I think we should stop using things. What goes into that decision process for you on either rip and replace because you need a solution, or just stop using altogether?
With regards to rip and replace, that typically comes from vetting all the products that we have in-house, finding the one that has the best value across the board, and then negotiating with the users of whatever category of product this is to all come in and join that. And I guess that's what's going to be the crux of it, is discovering what solution has the best features for our business unit, which of course that's not going to be the same across the board. It's going to be different with every company that's out there. But finding that engagement where I can get it holistically here for my departments. Project management software is one that I've always pushed of getting everybody on board because it's one that can wrap so well in creating an environment that everybody can play in together. And once people start doing that, they realize that, oh, this is such an amazing experience to. We never knew that we could leverage marketing directly with engineering on a project because we've never had tools that talked well together, and and spread that out to your support department or even all the way back to my team, where every now and again we have a product or some sort of project that relates directly back to the product team, but we don't have a good way to engage with them for a long-term project. And so as we review all these, those are the kinds of things that we're driving towards.
What I
Now,
hear you saying in some of that too is that you're identifying problems of business.
yes,
There are certain asks where collaboration across, or you want one solution, you want one set of data, you want to be able to aid one solution to the other solution. So is part of it for you also looking at, mapping, let's say for Zipweb, architectural diagram of all your solutions integrates where, and if you look at data flow, so if you hear from your boss, the CFO, starts asking you business questions about the business and you realize you can't answer them, and then you look at your architecture and realize, well, now I can't answer them, all the data is, and I need this piece and piece and this piece and this, back the old day of, how do I get all of that data? And you're right, having multiple solutions that do the same things does seem silly, and picking the best in breed would seem like a really good solution. But I also hear that you're starting to identify business problems that are being solved. And so you probably are asking, well, why do we have this if we're not going to solve these business problems? You have multiple solutions and never really solving some of those business problems. Do you make recommendations?
yeah, absolutely. Anywhere that I can find a hole and begin to uproot where the issue lies, I'll always drive back to some sort of solution and make a recommendation around what's available out and what I think might be a possible solution. Might not have IT be a dictator or a policymaker. All that needs to come from the source. I don't want to force a product onto somebody because I think that that's what's going to work for them. I want to take the time to understand their needs, help them see how this can fit not just them but others, and then have everybody come together as a solution that will work for what they've got.
Got it. So in that replace, the other thing I was thinking of that might fall your wheelhouse would be if a department comes to you as, hey, I'm looking, for a solution to manage our customer implementations. You're going to immediately, if you get brought into the decision-making process, look at, say, well, do we have anything else that would work with that? Why do we need to buy another solution? Do you get pulled into that decision-making and look across and make recommendations from a perspective have you looked at or tried?
Yeah, I do. I'll do it in two different fashions. When these conversations come up, I always go back to what do we have in-house? What are others using? Have you talked to any of the other departments? And first, because I'd rather just add seats to an existing product than move on to something new. And when it comes down to if there's nothing in-house, then what can we look for out in the wild? And I will through a scoping process with them to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we're all looking for the solution. And then if I can, I'll leverage a VAR if I've got one that I trust and that I feel has a breadth of knowledge that can help us dig in, because there are for every category product, there's hundreds of thousands of options out there to choose from, anything from fully scaled 20-year products to the latest that just popped on the market 2 days ago, and trying to find the solution it just takes time, and it takes getting into what the issues are and trying to drive to a solution off of that.
Yeah. So coming back to the challenges that make you rip or replace or select another vendor or alternative, what are the things that you look for, maybe being your top three pet peeves and or issues and challenges you face that made you say this is not the right fit for us?
A lot of it revolves around relationship, and I'm looking for somebody to come in and help us that has a air of professionalism. It doesn't mean that they're stuffy and dotting their I's and crossing their T's, because we're all human, we're all going to make mistakes. But when a solution provider is in front of me, unable to articulate well what it is that they have, they're making excuses for why a product functions a certain way, or their presentation doesn't have the fit and finish that you would expect for a product to have, things that really I shy away from. Next would be overly sales. We've had experience recently as we were doing some vendor session that getting immediately eliminated because of the constant pressure for either signing or sell, or even after we noted that we said no to some specific feature or product, it continued to drive that, oh, this is the thing that you want, this is the thing, and it tells me you're not listening.
Got it. So listening, I like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it is
to you and your needs in your company. What's valuable to you is something that's definitely a turn for you, and saying, I don't think you're the right fit vendor if you can't even hear my challenges are. Okay, really good one.
And I think that's always that's good to have a sales cycle is, yes, of course, got a great solution, and leaving that solution, or you wouldn't be working wherever it is that you work. But that's not what the customer cares about. The customer cares that you can actually articulate what the are that they're trying to solve, and then you're working towards helping find a good solution for those specific problems, not just throwing something at a wall and hoping that it sticks and fits the square peg round hole solution.
While you're talking about that, I think this is another interesting thing that from the CS perspective, it's something I talk about all the time, which is sometimes vendors will come to you, let's just say get assigned to go find the solution. As a company, you might be talking to a very, very end user, and they give you a list of requirements, which are all valid, but when you really look at it, they're very low value tactical items. And there's where we might look at that and say, I know we can solve that, but I'm wondering why they're not looking at these higher value problems. Do you find that helpful that I guess, do you take it as a negative if somebody takes you from that lower value outcome and starts talking about a higher value outcome to attach to?
I actually really do appreciate it. It's in line with the Toyota way. You always want to ask why as you work your way down the root of a problem. Just because somebody's looked at a solution because they have a problem needs to be fixed doesn't actually know why they have the problem. They just know that there's something wrong. It's looking at your own health, and you see the symptoms. The symptoms are because of cells, but you may not be able to articulate why you have these symptoms. And same thing when it to driving towards getting to a solution for in-house use. You need to get to the bottom end of whatever that is. And I think some are good sales individuals able to ask the right questions, intuitive questions. Questions aren't always lead back to whatever their product is, but are really there to get to the bottom of whatever that solution is.
Great. So would you also then say that if they're not asking questions, and that's you get us, that could be a challenge that also might go again as being, I don't think, right fit for us, because you don't seem to be asking the right questions, so you don't seem to be able to get us, and you don't seem to be able to regurgitate back to us an understanding of our problems. And it's okay if you want to say, well, I get that this is your problem today, but keep in mind that probably because of this problem, and you go, oh yeah, for sure. Then they say, how about if we show you a solution to your problems and kind of give you a holistic view of what your new world looked like?
That is exactly it. When you're having a conversation with somebody and they're only half listening, what they're waiting to do is to ask the next question they want to, that of course is going to lead back to something else, or instead they're waiting to try and fix the solution fast. And that's not where we want to be, right? I mean, where we want to be is a place where we're continuing, and I'll say it again, we're building a relationship. We want it to be that each of the people deal with in our lives are providing a greater and greater fit. And I want to be that in my times here that I move on and all those relationships come with me. Now, when I may not use their products, something else there, but at least know that I've got them. And this, all the way back to what we talked about earlier of they're a resource, they're a tool, they're the SME for that particular category of product. I want to be able to go to them and say, hey, you know what? I may not use you, but I've got this other product. How do you compare? How can we make this be aligned with what my needs are here? And have somebody that with that relationship, they will come back to me and say, you know what? You have the best solution. You don't need to pursue this anymore. Those are relationships that I want to have in business.
Right. No, I agree. I think that's great. And those are all great points. And I really want to thank you for taking the time. I think it's so insightful to hear from somebody with your level of experience, with your role. You sit at kind of the center of these companies trying to optimize. And I think your insights into what you look for, how you make those decisions, how you make decisions to keep them, and to actually be an evangelist internally for continued use of these solutions, I think was super invaluable to our audience and people who are in the S world to figure out, how do I make my customers super successful? How do I keep them? And I really like how you ended talking about the relationship, because like you said, you take it with you everywhere you go. And
absolutely,
we talk about that all the time, how important the CS role is in building that relationship, but not just a buddy, but a true advisory type of relationship that says, I get you, I want to help you, and you really feel that, and you want to continue that no matter what company you work for. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're
Thanks for
welcome.
taking
It's
the
a pleasure
time.
to be here, Jackie.
Yes, and it's so good to see you and always work with you. And I wish you all the best luck at ZipWhip as well. But thank you again for being a guest, and I'm
Yeah,
sure we'll have you back again.
great.
Take care.
All right, bye.